Somewhere in time. Somewhere in time.
Dun dun. Oh, man. We live yet? Well, guys, so new information tonight. We were promised new information, shocking discoveries, screen shares, and we got Josie and the Pussycats, and just a bunch of conjecture and nonsense. I'm supposedly being used or as some sort of CIA operative. Just a couple quick points. These people are scrambling to, like a vacuum, suck in all the people that want something to listen to about Flat Earth, so now you go with them. You know, so it's just something to keep in mind, guys. It's kind of ridiculous. Morgal kind of made some claims that were, you know, they were lies. So Tim went ahead and posted that debate. Anybody who wants to watch it can give it a listen to.
I wouldn't call it a debate, Adam. It was more of 3 o'clock in the morning after the fucking dude was just blowing us up, talking mad shit, all kinds of shit. Everybody can go and see it. Like, this dude's a blatant bigot. Yeah, apparently he really, really hates homosexuals, but whatever, to each their own. But this guy, so yeah, something else.
Yeah, he definitely, you know, he lies a little when he tells the story. We told him that it wasn't a debate yet. He was sending everybody all these messages, so we just figured we'd get him in and mess around with him a little bit. And we told him that up front, but he can say whatever he wants. You guys can listen for yourselves to him debunk the globe model. I don't even have to talk about what happened because anybody can kind of listen to it for themselves. I would like to hit on something Lori said about, she says, guys, they want to implode this movement. She actually says in the beginning that it is a psyop within, purposely meant to implode everything. And then at the end she says she's not sure if it is. So, I mean, which one is it? And then also she says that if they convince people that it was fake, then they can point back and at years from now and laugh and say, ha, 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 look at you idiots, you fell for Flat Earth. Like, what is it, Lori? It's like, what, to a couple 100,000 people on YouTube? What do you, like, this isn't 9/11. The world didn't see it. There's people in the world that don't know nothing about this. I mean, it's literally a couple 100,000 people on YouTube. It is nothing they can point at and say, ha, 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 we fooled the world. I mean, how delusional are you guys?
I would like to hop in. I don't think it's 100,000 at all.
No, I would put that number way lower than that. Like I said before, I would look at Eric Dubé's 10,000 subscriber number. It's right around there, and I would go somewhere in the middle of Eric Dubé and my perspective, Rory Cooper, because they've been essentially around the longest, and that puts it at about 8,000-9,000 active YouTube users, roughly about there, which kind of makes sense. Because nobody's really above the 10,000 mark, except for some people, but that's usually because they have, like, 3 years of Bible verses on their fucking YouTube channel or something.
Tiger Dan has 25, and
yeah, no, but he did a lot of shit before, and he was doing the religious stuff. More power to him, whatever. But he had a base before he got into this.
Mr. has, I just saw today, like 19,000. So I don't know. Yeah, a lot of them do have the whole biblical aspect to it, but yeah, I think it's even conflated, even past.
Even if we wanted to say to max 50,000 people, and she's saying something that they could point back on to the world, I mean, how delusional is that? It's delusional. It's so ridiculous to say something like that. That's how these people think. Everybody should understand that. They think in their minds that this is a global thing. I mean, they walk down the street. I challenge anyone. I did this the other day. I walked in CVS after work. I grabbed an energy drink. We were about to have that show. It was a couple days ago, before the second show we had, and I looked at this guy, a younger guy, standing in line, or standing behind the cash register that I'm buying the shit off of at CVS, and I said, yeah, you know about Flat Earth? And he's like, what? And I was like, Flat Earth, you hear of it, We're going to be live on YouTube. You go on YouTube? He's like, yeah, I'm on YouTube. I was like, do you know anything about Flat Earth? He looked at me like, people have no fucking clue what this is. This isn't, they think it's some huge movement, and it's so diluted to think that way. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I'm in a band. I play rock music in a band. I'm a guitar player. Yeah, okay, never. But they were asking me like the shit I was doing because I was like, I was at practice and I'm like sitting there yawning and it's like 8 o'clock at night and they're like, dude, you all right? And I'm like, no, you guys, you don't understand. Like I've been up like every single night till like 4 o'clock in the morning over the past week. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, we're just disproving flat Earth. And they just like stopped. Like one dude's jaw dropped and they're all like, wait, people still believe in that? I'm like, thousands of people, dude. Thousands. And they're like, no, are you fucking serious? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know me, I still have my reservations about NASA and stuff, but I also have my own like confirmations. Like I said before, like I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about it over and over and over. The star trails dipping below the horizon is the tell. That's the giveaway right there. It goes below the horizon. I've been thinking about it, and I'm like sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, couldn't you, like seriously, couldn't you, by the angle at which you view a star, couldn't you tell the inclination of what the land is that you're on? So per distance, shouldn't you be able to tell like what the angle difference is, right? So if everybody like I said before about if the sun when it revolves or whatever, if everybody's on the same line of longitude, right, can like just time when the sun goes down. But if they can take a picture of the same star at the same time, well, you could accurately gauge the curve of the Earth if there is one or if there isn't one. But you could tell, And yeah, I don't know, man. I've been really trying to dig into this stuff because I really want to find that proof, man. Because like I said, man, the flat stuff, it's bunk. And I hope that we at least reach some people. I know we did, but
this dude just said in the chat. I thought this was funny. Black Lives Matter is 4 times the size of Flat Earth.
Yeah, it is.
Too, like that's how these people are so delusional. They think that it's so big and they're going to point back and laugh and say, look at this small group of 20,000 people we fooled. I mean, come on, man.
Well, what's the typical common denominator with the people who are these mouthpieces? They're all fucking narcissists. They're all egotists. Their brand is better. They're all the leader of their own cult, man.
Yeah, ex-politicians, ex-Republican politicians who are trying to suck a vacuum of people lost don't want to be leaders. That's what they tell you as they put a show like that out, telling you that they have new information and then screen share Josie and the Pussycats and fucking zombie nonsense. I mean, that's what it felt like, zombified nonsense. I would also real quick like to hit on the Powerland thing. So they say they're uncovering new stuff I've never seen by anybody before. Okay, and they tell you about a video that Powerland did acting as an actor. Then he did some gay scene. That's new. That's not fucking. Not only is that not new, but it's ridiculous that you all sat there and acted like it was such a big deal. I mean, Morgile was like, "You paid me $20 million. I wouldn't kiss a man on for fake." Like it just. I mean, this is the people that you're listening to. I mean, it's nonsense. I mean, I don't care either way what people want to do with themselves, but I'm not going to sit there and I'm not going to slam a whole group of people and act like they deserve, to be bigified, or whatever you want to say. Like, I'm not going to slam a whole group of people for no reason at all that I have nothing to do with. So it's just ridiculous. And these are the people that, like I said, that are telling you that they know Tiger Dan is a shill because of the tortured look in his eyes when they rewatch videos. So just, keep that in mind.
Like, I don't know why people, dude.
Yeah,
if the flat Earth fucking movement, if the flat Earth movement is so religious and pious, like, and do people look at the shit that's on Tiger Dan's page, and do they ever think like, wow, we're fucking pieces of shit. What are we doing to this guy? Like, that dude is like, he seems like a solid guy. He's real religious. I'm not. We would butt heads, but I'd drink a beer with him out at a pub or a bar or something. I don't have any problems with that. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. It's like Tiger Dan all of a sudden doesn't agree with Flat Earth anymore. I don't agree with Tiger Dan, but I wouldn't attack him because of his religious beliefs, but these people will because their religious beliefs is Flat Earth. And now Dan's not pushing that, and all of a sudden Dan's the heretic. And everybody's letting him know that they want to fry him at the stake like the friggin' Catholic Inquisition.
Yeah, somebody made a good point there when they said that we're going to be looked at like heretics, you know, attacking the leaders, and it's just that when nobody is sitting here trying. We never had the plan, and we never got together and said, okay, we're going to fucking sit here and attack leaders and take them down. It was just after months of researching all this, and then linking up with Tim in the comments section, and then he had his own research, and then we combined everything. And then once we combined everything and I'd already come to conclusions before and now we saw that they were true, we figured everybody had to see this. It's not about attacking anybody. It's about everyone should know that information. That's all. I mean, if you want to call that attacking people, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But we don't think it is. And I still stand by what we did.
Dude, honestly, like, and I've said it. You know, I said it when we made the presentation. Like, I don't even know if that's Dubé's signature. But I put it out there because there's a connection, and that's why I'm just like, whatever, because I'm done with flat Earth, man. I'm so done with it. And that's why we just got all our information, we put it on the table. Like, we're not, at least I'm not planning on getting into any more of the psyop potatoes and shows like that, because it's done to death, man. Like, I don't want to be the next Mark Sargent talking about the same shit over and over and over. Like, no, we're just hypocrites at that point in the game. And it's like, whatever. Like, so, I mean, like I said, I don't have any like personal problems with any of these people, like, whatsoever. Even Morgau, like, even all the shit that happened, how that transpired, like, whatever. Whatever, I don't fucking care. But it's just, I still won't say that what they're doing and what they're saying is correct. Because I think they're damaging people's psyches, and they're putting people into situations where they could potentially, like, be locked in a fucking padded cell. Like, I'm not even joking about that, because people get incessant and obsessive about this. I've seen it happen, and it's going to be fucking maintained or contained in some shape or form. So people running them off, just saying all kinds of new stuff that doesn't make sense, like things are interdimensional. And what did the Morgau say today? He said that potentially the sun can traverse the Earth, like above a flat plane in an oval. But my point is that the sun doesn't work in a 24-hour cycle above a flat plane, because the optics, they just don't work. And, like, it's just bad info, and
I can potentially try one day, Ed, because it sounds good, but that doesn't mean that there's good science behind it. Does Kelly? Looks like Kelly just joined us. Do you want to say anything, man?
No, I was just watching your video from the other night. Stuff. I wish I'd been on for that.
Which one? On the Morgau thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we tried, man. It's very frustrating when we told him. If anybody wants to say that we treated him unfairly, I really want you to go back and listen to the very beginning of the fucking start of it, when we told him at the very beginning, we don't want to talk about the globe. We just want to see your proof that the Earth is flat, not that the globe isn't real. And after an hour of him insisting on doing exactly what we told him not to do, at that point, that's when it starts to become, it's so ridiculous. You can't help but get angry. I apologize for getting angry, but it comes out.
Right. Yeah. And Callie, real quick, I want to say thanks for watching our stuff. I've noticed you in the comment section and the chat boxes and stuff. I only got 1 subscriber and 0 content at the moment. I don't even know if that's going to change, but sincerely, honestly, thank you, because we put a lot of time into this stuff, and we wasted a lot of time in flat Earth stuff. Because, like I said before, that shit is just enough good science to fool intelligent people. And then you have to, like, scrutinize it and dig into it, and, like, the concepts work, but they don't when you actually build them. And that, hell, I started animating. I started learning how to animate to prove the Earth was flat. And like I said to Adam, and I put a video out about the midnight sun, and it was I thought it was a good video until I kept watching it, and I'm like, this is wrong. And then I made some more animations, and I was like, it works in both. You know what I mean? It works for a globe too, and I'm like, well, that's bunk, plain and simple, and then everything started chipping away, and then I just couldn't see it anymore, just like how when I went to, I really, really wanted to think that the Earth was flat, even though I knew that there was always that problem with the sun, but I could never, I don't know, I wanted it to happen, because, I don't know, it makes you think, It gives you a high almost, like you're in the know. You know what I mean? You're in the in crowd. You know the secret. So
That is definitely like I said. They take everything from you. We've all had it happen to us, and then you start walking around in your life, and you're working, you're doing your regular, you're in your daily life, and you're thinking about everything and how fake it all is, because you now are in the world of La La Land, where your car is not your car, glass isn't glass, nothing is real, and it's ridiculous, because when you fact check the shit, there's good science and mathematics behind it to prove what they're telling you is bunk, So, what
right.
else? People. One real quick. They actually laughed at one point. We told people that, not that just the Masons only believe flat Earth. We told people they control both sides of the coin, so they can control the argument and push your perception either way. So we're not saying that they weren't on both sides of it. We're saying that it was interesting nobody ever told you that they were on both sides of it. They only told you they tried to push the globe. That's all we said. Okay, so, go back and listen.
Yeah, have you downloaded the Zedetic book and read through it?
The what?
The Zedetic book. Have you downloaded it?
The entire thing, no. But I've looked at a lot of different things on the. I mean, it's a lot of stuff. But I've looked at a lot of different stuff on the website of how the science, the way, if you want to call it science, the way it works, how it tries to prove beliefs, how it really is never proving anything. It's really just leaving things in the mire. Like the dogmatic views.
Yeah, well, all it is it's a 19th century. This guy just, started it up, started looking at, the horizon, and then started making stuff up. It's not scientific at all. It's it's his own little cult thing.
They're very rudimentary observations that you can see with your own eye, but it's not put into scale of how small we actually are,
Yeah, the curvatures are way exaggerated on that, so it's like...
So what's
people don't realize how, real quick, I don't think a lot of people understand in their perception, in their mind, how large the galaxy is, how big stars are, how far. You can think of a light year, you can't even, I'm not saying I can comprehend it, nobody else can. I fucking can't even comprehend it. Comprehend how large that actually is, because you've never seen a distance like that, you never will see a distance like that, you have nothing to compare it to. So when you think you should see movement in the stars from all these years, the thing is when you use really intense instruments, you can see small, minute changes, okay? But with your naked eye, because they're such vast distances away and so large, with your naked eye, you can't see a change. It doesn't mean that there aren't small, tiny, minuscule changes, but with your naked eye, people can't understand it. I'm not saying I can't, because it's so vast and so large that I think it's hard for people to wrap their mind around it. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, it takes centuries for movement to show up, so you're not going to go out and 2 weeks later see a star move.
The difference. Yeah, that's like I said to the Morgile too. I brought that up to him. Like, how do you disprove precession? You know what I mean? To disprove precession is to essentially debunk astrology. Now, if you debunk astrology, now at least from my perspective, like I got into the biblical side of things, right? Like from my perspective, some of the Bibles it echoes. That's what I'll say. It echoes astrology. Like Abraham's generation was represented as Taurus, the bull, which is why Moses, Aries the ram, comes down from the mountain and commands everybody to slay each other for worshiping false idols, and they destroy the bull, and that enters in Aries the ram. And then after Aries became Pisces, Jesus feed the crowd of 3,000 with 2 fish, and he'll be with us until the end of the age, where, the water barrel will greet you or something like that, and that moves us into Aquarius. So to debunk that, and he said he was a Christian, and that's why I was trying to get into his armor and just be like, well, dude, I kind of made you look like you double talked yourself by doing that almost.
What he actually said was, when you said that, he actually wanted you to quote Bible verses to prove that possession was even real. That's actually what he asked you to do. He couldn't even admit that it was doable and that people have documented in time. He actually wanted you to quote Bible verses to prove it was real. Instead of just everybody already fucking knows that it is, he had to.
Yeah, but that's the thing I'm getting to is that, like, it exists, and there's other things in society throughout time that echo it, you know what I mean? So how do they know that shit happened if they can't even see half the stars? Because they probably already went through it and they mapped it in some shape or form. That fucking makes sense to me, because it sure as shit just didn't appear on a fucking rock one day. You know, so, I don't know.
Yeah, I know what he was trying to do with his little graphic and everything. What he's trying to say is that, okay, so you have the Earth, and you're looking at it from outer space. Now the North Pole points at Polaris. Okay, and so the stars, as you watch, they rotate around Polaris.
Correct.
Now something that's close to Polaris is like the Big Dipper. You can follow the stars from the cup and they'll point to Polaris. So all the constellations that are close to Polaris, up at the top of the dome, so to speak, those you're going to see all year round. And that's what he's trying to say.
Okay.
Now, the ones that are further down, if you think of the sky as a dome, Polaris is at the very top of the dome center. Now, if you start to look down the dome to the side walls, those are the constellations, and they're the zodiac constellations that are seasonal. So it's kind of like the difference between looking up, which is north, and then looking off to the side, and those are going to change because we're going to go around the sun.
I see what you're saying.
So
okay. But when you say dome, do you literally mean dome? I'm curious.
No, not literal dome. No,
okay, I got you. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that because, like I said before, I can't talk smack about how people don't check people on their own shows. So, okay, that's just okay.
No, it's like,
I'm sorry.
When you look at the sky, it's kind of like a dome. You look straight up. And,
agreed. I can entertain the concept, absolutely.
So, yeah. So the constellations, really, the ones that are going to change are the ones that are going to be that will rise in the east. During the night. How it comes up and everything. So those that are farther east. But if you're looking at the North Star and the constellations right around there, you're going to see those all year round. And that's what he's saying, is that, well, you can see these constellations all year round, so that's proof. Well, no, that's the top of the dome. You have to look off to the side, to the east.
I
where
see
everything's moving faster. Right. But what you're saying is, okay, so what you're saying is he's using an absolute correct observation that we can't disprove because we don't live long enough to disprove it. So that question is that's baited because you can't really say that it's not true. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, he's partially right. There are constellations.
Right, that's exactly what I was saying. There's enough good info embedded in the flat Earth concept to fool intelligent people. And that's why I keep popping on that. And I want.
But what he's saying, though, and I like how you said that, Kelly, is that he's cherry-picking one piece that fits his narrative, and when he moved on, he wouldn't even have told you the other side of what Kelly just told us. He only mentions the piece that fits what he wants to. That's why I don't like how they want to debunk. That's why we get mad about them debunking the globe, because we don't care to hold on to it. It's no big deal to us. So it's like, you don't need to sit there, because I think they like to set the narrative by debunking 2 or 3 things that we're told about the globe, so then they open people's mind and then get them sucked down a hole so then they can start showing everything else. And I don't need to waste time doing that. I just want the proof that you were ready to die for it. If you say you're ready to die for something, you should have proof of it. That's just, I don't think that's crazy at all.
Yeah. Well, he just ignores the other part of the the observation where, just looking farther down those constellations. There's a whole list out there that you can look up very easily. It's seasonal constellations. It tells you when stuff like Orion, that's something that'll come up more in the spring and the summer, but in the winter it's too far down, so you're not going to really see it.
Well, I actually wrote that down because I'm going to look that up, because next time I talk to Morgile, if he doesn't listen, because he doesn't listen to anything that doesn't suit his narrative, so he probably won't listen to that. So I'll have to bring it up to him. So.
Yeah.
Right, and this is good information, Kelly. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, just look up seasonal constellations. It'll tell you when the constellations are easily will show up in the seasons. And
right. So in my mind, I'm going to change up pace for you real quick. So in my mind, the flat Earth is dead. It's dying. It's dying out, and people are grasping. They're holding on. They're trying to get the water out of the boat. They're bailing ship. Adam, what do you think the next step for flat Earth is? What do you think everybody's going to do? I mean, obviously we can't. You know what I mean? If you don't know, what do you think?
Talking to people that are afraid to leave because they've got them in this fake bubble now, like we've talked about with Tim before, And Tim is being quiet right now, but I'm sure when he has something to say, he'll pop in whenever. So, yeah, well, he was on a little bit earlier anyway, so that's probably why he was saying some stuff. Then he got out. So, I don't know where they're going to go next, but I would say that they're trying to suck in all the people that keep in there that don't leave, and then they just want to keep you swirling and swirling to keep the gravy train and to keep everything going, because it's just, I don't know why they need people to even believe them. I mean, I don't even get that whole perspective anyway. I mean, if you believe the Earth is flat, go out and prove it, do it yourself, and
Right.
why do you need to, tell everybody that it's flat? Just go fucking do it,
Right. There was a Facebook group that I was in.
That's why it's an agenda.
I don't want to. I'm not gonna. Well, there's a Facebook group that I was in. There was a couple that apparently took $1,700 from the group because they were going to do a balloon launch or something like that, and they screwed with the money. So there is money involved, at least in some shape or form. I wouldn't make the claim that there's, like shitload of money. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, but there's definitely funds exchanged in some shape or form. People are donating to things. So to anybody make the claim that I don't make anything, well, you might, but you might not, but somebody is, because, you know what I mean? Like, people donate shit, that whole, what was it, all the laser tests and balloon tests that just were junk that everybody did? Like, I mean, good try, I guess, if it was legit, any of it. Or was it just a scam? I don't know, but given
Kelly here to talk about the moon, the claims of the moon giving off a cool light. Can you do that for us, Kelly?
Well, I just went out and looked up, so you got sunlight, which is the electromagnetic spectrum, the visible spectrum of it. Sorry, I gotta get some water here.
Oh, you're good, man.
So the moon is reflecting the sunlight. Some of the spectrum is going to be lost. It's going to be deflected off and everything. So whatever makes it to the Earth is going to be like a subset of the visible spectrum. And heat is basically the infrared part of the spectrum and stuff. So, very little of that shows up. It's going to make it through the reflection to the Earth, and any objects would be maybe slightly warmed up, but really it's going to be so small that it's not going to have any effect whatsoever on um, like Rich's wallet or whatever, whatever the experiments they've been doing. So, yeah, it's going to be a null result on that, or, heat is vibration from the uh, infrared radiation. So you're not going to have something that's like a cool light. There's no such thing as a cool light.
Yeah.
Because none of the bandwidth is going to stop frictional vibration of the wallet or whatever to cool it down. So, plus, he's using a barbecue thermometer. I've seen. What those do is the laser on that is just for aiming, but the actual reading part is like a circle, depending on how close you are. But from where he was probably averaging the temperature for probably a 2-foot diameter circle, picking up his patio and the wallet and everything else. So
Yeah, it's one of those things that is very unfounded, but it seems as though they have, made it complete fact. I remember there was pretty much a null result with John LeBron's testing, but like I said before, these are not scientific at all in any way. There's no control, and basically they're trying to get the result that they're trying to basically get, and
yeah, you can't set a wallet on a hot patio and think that you're going to get good results. You have to.
There's wind and there's other variables as well. So
Yeah.
it's just a complete farce of a test, really.
Yeah.
But are you comfortable enough? Can you also talk about if water bends or not? They like to say, their main point. One dude was telling me the other day, we'll get a hose and just spray your driveway, and it'll find the lowest point. And
Yeah, I'm actually working on a video on that right now. Everything because water, beads up and everything. So in free space, either in outer space or on the ISS, water's tendency is going to be to form a sphere. So, that's this idea that, the oceans are flat or whatever. It's moving and roiling, and if you could get a camera down and look like at a shoreline, something like a rocky shoreline that's got a definite vertical edge to it where the water's at, you'll be able to see that the water will curve up and attach to the rock or whatever. So, yeah, I've got a graphic that I'm going to be including in there. It's kind of it's a globe graphic, and it shows the ocean level heights across the globe, and it's just it's roiling, and there's high spots and low spots, and
you can get that from the buoy system.
You get that from what?
From the buoy system across the planet.
This one's a satellite view.
Okay.
They get elevations from a satellite on the ocean, and then they put it onto a graphic to show differences. Yeah, I don't know if I can. I don't know how to screen share, but I could if I knew how to do that.
It's over to the left-hand side. You got to it says actually screen share. It's this green.
Oh, okay.
And then I got to hit present to everyone.
It's just great how I love the information, man, and it's we appreciate it. It's good how these people love to. I mean, it's like basically what you're saying is, you're showing people how they like to pick and choose things of one side of a coin but not show you the other, because, you know, and if you're being objective and you're being scientific, you have to look at all the data, not just the data that suits your narrative.
Right.
And also, while we're on the subject, so they actually don't believe that the ISS is real, even though there is video of it flying across the sky, and you can actually pretty much map it out.
Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just basically, you know, it's mathematical, and it's just the data from satellite, and it's showing the, you know, the height levels of the water. And you can see, you know, obviously it's not flat, so.
Well, they're say it's aren't real and that this data is fake. I'm just, you know, that's what I've been dealing with for a year now. So
yeah, I actually started last April. I kind of fell onto the flat Earth videos and then started commenting. And then when the comments were starting to be the length of essays and stuff, I decided to start doing videos because I was tired of typing so much.
Now, Callie, where does the what agency collects that data?
This is a NASA graphic.
Okay.
So, I mean, yeah, it's not going to satisfy a lot of them that are going to say, well, NASA, and they close their ears and.
Right.
Well, me and Ed are still very skeptical of NASA, but
I'm still on the fence with them.
Well, Susan,
it's all good.
The thing with NASA is, like, okay, they've released badly composited photos, and they've released a bunch of other stuff that's been badly done. But for me, the agency as itself isn't. It's like it's got problems, but it's not, you know, wholly evil. It's just, you know, they need to do a little better work in what they release to the public. So I don't know what you know.
Because what it is everybody wants, and they think that you can just go up there and they want an HD picture, you know, zoomed out from space, and that the ribbons of imagery, that's what they point to. I mean, I've heard all the arguments for a year now. So, and I used to say it. So what they're going to tell you is that it's not real because it's ribbons of imagery that they splice together in Photoshop. That's what they like to say, and because it suits their narrative. But if you would like to get Ed, since a guy that really researches this stuff, explain to people why they would have to do that.
Who?
Kelly, if you have any knowledge on, I mean, I have a little knowledge on it, but you seem like a guy that likes this kind of stuff. So do you have any knowledge on why, like, because all the flat earthers like to say that, you know, the satellites are fake, and then if not, they splice the data together in Photoshop. They want one picture zoomed out from space of the Earth.
Yeah, well, it depends on the satellite taking the pictures. Some of them can't get a whole picture. They take pictures in progressive rows across the surface of the Earth, and then you have to splice it together. And then they do the really bad thing where they decide to throw stock footage of clouds on there so you can go in and you can see, you know, the repeating cloud patterns because they think it makes it look better. And that's, you know, that's annoying.
They put that in there because the graphic designers, which Matt Powerland claimed to be, which he has no you know, degrees in or anything, why he'd be hired as that is ridiculous. But what you're saying is that, you know, basically, again, the picking and choosing, stuff like that.
Yeah, there are some of the photographs that they have to take in progressive strips, you know, little boxes that they have to stitch together. And so, you know, I understand that a lot of people get annoyed because it's not one full picture, but there's actually not a whole lot of satellites out far enough, except for the Japanese one, where you can get a whole picture of the Earth in one shot. It's like,
Oh yeah, so that's what I was saying. So they like to Boylan likes to point at the clouds and say they're fake, and you're saying, well, the clouds are fake because they added it on there, as something because they thought it looked better, and that's been openly admitted before.
Yeah.
And so you can't point at that and say, hey, look, the clouds are fake. The whole thing is fake. If you do your research, you'll see that they've admitted that they've added the clouds in for look.
Right, and it's annoying, and people can be annoyed about it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the whole of NASA is evil.
Illuminati, satanic bastards that are lying to you.
I wanna say about the epic satellite pictures. I can't believe that those are actually real. I'm sorry. Where the moon has the green halo around the edge, like I don't know. It just looks so fake CGI. But that doesn't mean the Earth's not round. Okay, let me get that out too. And I don't know if it's round either, but I'm still trying to figure that out. But I think I almost got it figured out. I'm almost there. I'm not 100% there yet. But
I'm supposed to look at a picture of stuff like that and determine if it's CGI or real because you've never seen it in real life. So
dude,
it's all
when the movies looks better than real life, if what we're told real life is supposedly is, like what the stuff we see, like if gravity looks better, like I don't know, man. I'm just sketchy on it.
The thing is, we're not talking about a Nikon P900 up there. You know what I'm saying? There's actual cameras that are taking different, basically of the electromagnetic spectrum.
No, and I get that, but I'm just saying, like, you'd figure at some point in time they'd put like a badass camera on one of those things, and be like, hey,
Well, they are.
here's a crystal clear one.
Yeah, on the NASA website, they just recently sent up if you know what the red cameras are.
Red cameras are awesome.
Yeah, they sent those up to the ISS, so we should be starting to see really good 4K 60 FPS images coming from there.
I'll be curious. I'll be curious when that happens because that always bothered me. With like channels like Learn of the Jesuit Order, how he went on about the vomit comet and that's the ISS, and I'm like, look, I mean, I never bought into that because they're up there filming 50 minutes straight. Tiger Dan made a fantastic video on what could potentially be that whole thing. I believe it was based on the Hutchinson effect or something like that, but still, Occam's razor. The reality of it is that more than likely is that there's something up there, and it looks just like the ISS, and it's probably called the ISS too, if you catch my drift.
Yeah, well, you can see it. I've seen it bare-eyed.
Right. No, I've seen the pictures of it traversing the moon. You know what I mean? And I'm not taking away from. I'm not saying those are fake because those are made by people, regular people. You know, and I'm just saying, like, I look at different evidences, and I'm not making any determinations yet, and I'm still figuring my way around things when it comes to this whole deal.
Something too that I think we need to think about is, okay, all these years, decades and decades think of all the hours and hours of data that's been recorded and checked and math behind it. Like, so, I mean, to think that everything is fake, we have to then say, okay, for 40, 50 years, every single stitch of data that's been recorded and every person that's been paid to record that data is just on one big conspiracy, and every single stitch of the data is fake, and every person that's ever went to a college, had a degree, done groundwork, checked that data on their own is a liar. They've never done groundwork. They've just sat in class, received degrees, and then went about their lives just preaching to everybody what they only learned in the classroom. I mean, this is what I sat down and thought about for a moment, because it was like, if you want to think everything's fake, then you have to put that into perspective. And when you put that in perspective, it's absolutely ludicrous. It's
right, because you would have to be an egotist to think that you're smarter than all those people.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just, I don't know. Dude, that's why I'm objectively looking at everything. Like I'm arguing pro ball Earth. Why? Because that's the go-to because it works. And
you got to think. So there's a kid out there who, as 5, 6 years old, he gets into astronomy and everything. Really likes it. Takes all the classes as he's growing up through, junior high, high school. Goes to college, takes those classes, then he goes out to get his first job, and somebody tells them, "Oh, this is all fake. Come join our conspiracy."
Right?
Who would not just blow their lid and whistle blow the hell out of it? Going through them.
A good point that there's a lot of Russian scientists that they know that aren't making a lot of huge amounts of money. There's a lot of people that aren't making a lot of money. And they wouldn't just stand by as some huge part of some conspiracy with all their doctrines and all their degrees and just be fooled like clowns. I mean, just to put that, I just need people to really put that into perspective, because to think that way, we're talking about millions and millions of people too, not just a couple hundred. We're talking about millions of people that have went to school.
All their pride.
It's everybody on the planet except for the flat earthers.
Yeah, us even 6,000. Right. You'd have to really be that type of person to have a moral superiority complex to say my version of pride is better than 99.9% of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, either that or a mental disease or something.
Right.
That's why I say too, I don't know how sometimes I feel bad because I got sucked into it, and then my whole world became fake, and that's why people ask me, why are you doing this? What kind of agenda do you have? And this is why, because we don't want other people to have to experience that nonsense themselves, because it can really, so you might never come out of it. I mean, there's a possibility. So we're trying to stop that from happening. So when people ask, what's your agenda? Why are you doing this? Why do you care? Well, that's why we care, because we've been there. We don't want other people to have to be there. That's why. If that's not good, go fuck yourself up.
Kids, junior high school kids watching this stuff, starting to question it, and then trying to hurt class and saying, well, this, having doubts about what's being taught, that'll screw up their whole education.
Oh, well, because you're going to be told by Morguile and other people that the teacher's just indoctrinated because he's just paid. He's paid now, and he's been indoctrinated his entire life to believe it by another indoctrinated teacher who taught him, who was taught by another indoctrinated teacher, and so on and so forth. And it's just to think that way, to think that none of these people have ever. You have to understand, a lot of people that get degrees in astronomy and do these things, they do it because they love it. You don't spend hours and hours doing it. Of course they do groundwork. What, do you think these astronomers get degrees and then they just sit in their homes and rake in money or some shit? That's ludicrous. They do this stuff because they love it.
Yeah, I've got two friends that work at Lockheed Martin, and they do it because ever since I knew them in 6th grade, they've been into astronomy, astrophysics, and stuff. And I'll tell you what, if anything looked, out of place or whatever, they would have said something about it. So.
Well, I mean, but they're probably paid, to keep quiet, to keep hush. And like Morguile says, all the town maps are real because they have to be, but the globe maps are fake. I mean, that's just
right.
Think about
Can I make a point real quick?
Go for it, Ed.
That's just like meteorites, stuff like that. If anything moves up there and they find it, they can see it. You know what I mean? Bang, it pops up. Now, that's the thing, and I want to touch on this because this goes right along with what happened today on Lori Frary's show. When she said, come on, Mark Sargent, I'm paraphrasing, come on, Mark Sargent, explain the meteorites or the meteors or whatever that fall. And she's like, oh, in a video game standpoint, you could just put them there. And she's like, that doesn't make sense or whatever. And they can see that. Now, I understand this because I worked radar in the Air Force, so I understand radar returns and hits and how satellites work, like satellite radar, radio telescopes. My bad. And I can understand the returns and shit like that. I understand the concept, and people see shit moving. What? Didn't they just discover another planet or something to that effect?
Possibly.
Right, but they've been talking about that for 20 years now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so far out there that they haven't seen it or anything, but there's just indications. So it's a little soon for them to be really saying anything too much.
Hey,
I would
hey,
also, real quick, if you know anything about SpaceX, because they also, a lot of the flat earthers, they bring up SpaceX, because I was in that as well, and I've heard people make claims that, they've never successfully shot a rocket up, but they don't know what they're doing because they can't get past the dome, different things of that nature. And then when I did a little more research into them, I found out that that wasn't necessarily the case the way that they spin it. Has anybody looked into any kind of SpaceX stuff on those type of claims that they have no idea what they're doing and they can't even get up there?
Well, I think Red's Redrick, he just showed that he's got a new camera. I think he's going to be, because he's down there where he can film the rocket
Yeah, I've seen.
launch. So I think we're going to see some good stuff from him on rocket launches with the new camera and everything.
Didn't understand that. I watched on Red's channel months ago. He said it was a SpaceX rocket and it was being launched, and I watched it get launched, and it went out. Like, I mean, and he said that we saw the trails, everything from the rocket left these trails because it was early in the morning. The way the light was, it was really cool. And how is it that they haven't got up there? I mean, does anybody know? Is there a confirmation? Does anybody know for 100% fact that SpaceX has never even gotten into space? That's not true, correct?
no, that's not true. Can I jump in here?
Yeah.
Hey, this is Rocket Man, and I've commented on some of y'all's videos and some other stuff, and I actually work at NASA, and I'm very familiar with SpaceX and what's going on at NASA and a lot of this other stuff. And I mean, SpaceX has put cargo in space numerous times, and that's not an issue. They've done it. What they've hold on a second. I'm getting a Java update thing. Anyway, the big push here recently was for them to land their first stage safely again, and so that they can start reusing that first stage. And so that's what you've been seeing in the news mostly. But they've launched now for a couple of years. They've launched cargo into space quite routinely.
So you're saying that they're cherry picking. And by the way, thank you for coming on. I mean, we don't even, I've seen comments before, but I mean, we appreciate you coming on. But so basically you're saying again that they're just cherry picking something out of the news to suit their narrative, when in reality, prior to all this, they've already been up there doing things. So to say something like that is not only unfounded, not only misleading, but it's just absolutely false. Correct?
Yep, absolutely false. Actually, the even the Discover satellite that Ed doesn't believe in was launched by SpaceX.
Oh.
Well, I think that we just sometimes are very we question what NASA puts out because of some of the things that that Kelly hit on, because of they add the animations in, different things like that, and he's even said himself that they could put out better stuff. So I mean, I'm sure you yourself can even admit, and which Ed unmuted himself. I'm sure he wants to say something, but I'm sure you yourself can even admit that sometimes some of the stuff that is put out by NASA can be picked apart by people because it's not that stuff that's put out.
I don't understand the trust, the overall, just the level of distrust that seems to prevail, and this goes for all along. It seems to be just an entity body, and that's if that's the way you feel, then you're going to find a conspiracy everywhere you look.
Right. Well, all right.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about me. I just want to there's just questions that I have that it just NASA can't satisfy. Like, how come you don't see like a video of a space shuttle when they have the space shuttle going into orbit from the cockpit? Like,
You do.
how come they can mount one on the outside facing down? Where is it?
No, dude, just go on YouTube and search
I've
Space
searched.
shuttle from cockpit. There are videos on YouTube. The whole launch from inside the cockpit. There's videos of the astronauts passing the camera around and looking out the windows.
I'm gonna have to dig on it more.
Actually, I've looked for that too, and I haven't.
I haven't found it. I'm gonna do some more digging. I'll do it right now. But seriously though, like,
I'll search.
dude,
I'll search
I'm
for
just
one
sketchy
right now
about it.
while we're talking.
Right? I'm just sketchy about NASA, regardless of how it is. It's something that it can't be observed. It has to be taken on faith. It's not. There's not second. There's not third-party organizations going up and filming NASA. That's actual legit third-party organizations. Okay? It defies the scientific method. It is a faith-based system as well. Flat Earth has got me to the point where I don't care anymore. I don't even want to entertain the argument. I'm just like, whatever. It's all bullshit at this point in time. So I'm still trying to get back into it.
It's not faith. It's not faith-based, and it is verified. All the data that NASA produces is used by universities and all kinds of research groups all over the world.
Of course it is. I didn't say that they didn't do valid research. But what I'm saying is,
all that data. That's what I'm saying. If it were bogus, it would be called out. Trust me.
Right. I still don't understand why two rockets. I still don't understand why two rockets don't go up at the same time, and one is videotaping the other from the perspective and without cuts or production. That bothers me.
Flat Earthers, man? Why?
No, to prove to myself that the shit's happened because it defies the scientific method.
But that's expensive. You don't do stuff like that. You gotta realize how expensive it is to launch a rocket, and you don't go off and do something just because it's frivolous. Everything has a very specific purpose, and so going off just to like people are saying, take pictures of the satellites in space. Why? What possible purpose could there be for that? We know they're there. We've put them up. We can
right?
we can measure them with the radios that we're talking to them by radio all the time. What good does a picture do? That's a very expensive picture.
What about seeing what some people have brought up? And you know what? You actually make some really good points that I haven't heard. I mean, it's actually a change of pace to hear from people that actually make points from data that's been checked scientifically. Which we're used to hearing just conjecture and craziness. But I lost what I wanted to say there.
But I've never seen Rocket Man ever. Any of his comments. I really appreciate you coming on, man. I'm sure most of the flat earthers gonna be like, oh, it's the whole conspiracy that Tim Osman had some NASA guy on or whatever. It's all a psyop, it's all fake or whatever. So I really appreciate it because we do have many questions that are not answered ever. They're just theorized, basically.
No problem. I've kind of just lurked for a while. I just posted just a quick YouTube query over here in the comments, and if you look at that,
yeah, it looks good.
You just go and there's tons of cockpit video during launch. Anyway, so yeah, I've been working a little bit, and I've kind of thought about making some videos, but frankly, I just don't have the time. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and so I would probably never finish one because I'd never be satisfied with it. And so I'm like, it's a rabbit trail I'm not going to run down.
Yeah, I remember the couple points I wanted to ask you real quick because a lot of people have made this. Number one, people will say, why don't they send the first female astronaut to the moon? And they also say, why don't they put a camera on the moon to see an eclipse from the moon side?
Again, going back to the moon is a very expensive venture. Just doing it just to say we put a female astronaut on the moon is, it's kind of a pointless thing to do.
It's nice, it's feel good, but it's not something that's going to further anything.
There's no value to it. You've got to go back and do something, and basically you've got to justify the money, right? And if you go and say, hey, we're going to go back to the moon just because we want to put a female on the moon, Congress is going to say, yeah, bullshit, right? There's got to be real science, that you're doing for that money. Now, as far as the camera on the moon, I mean, I can't remember who it is. Somebody's going to be putting up. Somebody's talking about doing a rover. I think it may be the Chinese or whatnot. But we've got the Lunar Reconnaissance orbiter up there now that's orbiting the moon. That's taking high resolution images of the moon and building a large 3D map. The moon's impacted by meteors all the time, and I think we're not the only ones that have orbiters around the moon taking pictures. You can even go to the LRO website and see the Apollo landing sites, and you can actually, when the sunlight is just right, you can actually see the shadows of the equipment that's left up there. You can see the footprints, the trails through the dust.
Well, they're led to believe right now that the last year they've been telling people that there's a refresh rate problem with the moon and that it's possibly a hologram.
Yeah,
So.
I've heard all of Mark Sargent's crap. Mark Sargent thinks everything's just a big TV screen in space, and we just put up whatever we want to up there, which is stupid.
That's Crow Triple Seven's got the not that.
I mean, that literally is his answer for every little disproof or everything you say. It's like, hey, why didn't this work? Well, they can project anything they want to. Well, sure, we could project unicorns across the sky if he's correct, but it's the easy way out.
I would actually like to ask you now too, because this is then one more big thing that Sargent and a lot of people use this. They say the guy, I always forget his name, but it's on YouTube and it was on the Science Channel. Guy from NASA comes on, he says, we can't get people past the Van Allen belts. Now, okay. I tried to say that talking about because before there weren't complex computers to get past the belts, and that's why people could get past without dying. And now that's what they're trying to say. If you could explain that from your perspective.
And you're right, okay? Now, what that guy talked about, I remember seeing that video, and I remember all the stink about it, and it's not the people, all right? You're going to go through the Van Allen radiation belts. You get a little bit of radiation, but it's really not a big deal. But when we went with Apollo, you got to look at the level of the computers on Apollo. These were basically nothing more than transistors and magnetic core memory, literally ring magnets that make memory. If you go back and look at memory, if you go back and look at the way they used to do memory, it was basically wires that crossed through ring magnets, and you just basically polarize the magnet one way or the other, and that's the way you got memory. But now we go through and we're using modern computers, and the circuitry in these things and the FPGAs and stuff like that are on the nanometer scale, and so a highly charged particle can penetrate and damage that, and that's the thing they're worried about is you're going through the Van Allen radiation belts, and if you do enough damage to the core computers, basically the vehicle could be rendered incapable.
Wow. I mean, it's just really nice to hear these answers from your perspective because, you just hear so much conjecture and so much faith-based science the last year from the other side that, to hear things from your perspective is, it's amazing, actually. Somebody actually asked a question in the chat. The smallest thing the Hubble can see is over 300 feet long. Please explain.
The smallest thing the Hubble can see is over 300 feet long. Let me think about that. I don't know. I'd have to draw that out. But but
guys.
let me,
It's the focal range.
yeah,
Every camera and every lens has a minimum distance of focal range, and every lens has a maximum distance. So sometimes, it's designed. Well, it's supposed to be designed for long distance seeing. So its minimal distance is far out, and
yeah,
that's probably why the 300 feet.
yeah. No, you're right. And let me put this in a different term. If you go off and you buy uh, a nice like Nikon zoom lens, like I've got a Nikon 70 to 200 zoom lens, and that thing I can focus out to infinity with that thing, but because of the focal length of it, I can't focus in any closer than anything that's about 7 feet away,
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh, but if I want to focus in on something closer, I have to buy a lens that's made to focus that. Well, the Hubble telescope was not made to look at Earth; it was made to look out, and it's made to focus on things way out there. And if you spun it around and looked at Earth, you'd just get a big blurry picture. You wouldn't get anything.
Wow.
It's just not made to do that.
I mean, it's logical answers that you're giving.
Yeah,
that,
you don't put up. The thing is, you try to keep the cost of these projects, and everybody talks about the cost of a NASA project or a government project or anything, and they are expensive, but for good reason. But you try to limit the cost of those where you can. So you're not going to go up and put up a telescope that has capability well beyond what you intend to use it for, because that's just stuff you have to design in and pay for. So you're not going to have it. You're not going to have Hubble focus on something that's 200 miles away when that's never your intent.
the waste of a lot.
It's a waste of money.
Yeah.
You have to build that capability into it.
The big elephant in the room that they constantly say is the spin. Prove the spin. Prove the Earth is spinning. Nobody can prove it's spinning. Nobody can prove it. From your perspective, what would be your best thing you can point at to say, this is the best thing I can say to show you the Earth is definitely spinning at roughly 1,000 miles an hour?
For my art, what would be the one best thing?
I mean, you can name a couple.
I don't know if there is one best thing, but let me tell you this, okay? They always throw up Michelson-Morley and Airy's failure and stuff like that, and those were all experiments back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, I believe. No, late 1800s, to prove the existence of the ether, and they all failed because there is no ether. And so their interpretation of that is the Earth doesn't spin. So
let me jump in here for a second.
Go ahead.
If you don't understand what the thought about ether is, back in the 19th century when they were doing this, basically ether is to light what atmosphere is to sound. Sound needs to travel through the air because it's just vibrational, vibrations through the air that hit our eardrums. So what they thought, they were still trying to figure out light. Is light a wave or is it a particle? If light is a particle, it has to pass through something. It needs a medium to pass through. So the medium is ether. It's the thing that they wanted it to pass through, that they were trying to prove that it passes through. So a lot of the experiments and the hypotheses were, okay, well, does the ether drift? Does it move around like the atmosphere moves around and everything? So Airy's experiment was set up to decide if there was ether drag, is what they were calling it. Does the light from that star get moved because the ether is moving, and by the time it hits the telescope? And so what they did was they did a regular sighting through a regular the regular part of the telescope, and then the other side they filled with water, which would slow down the light and refocus it. And so what this experiment was trying to do was to decide if there was an ether drag, and the conclusion from that was no, they couldn't show that there was ether drag. And that's all that experiment did. Now, this kind of started with Michael Boylan, the old British guy that did that graphic that, they keep showing where they've got the telescope, and because he didn't have to tilt it any further, it shows that the Earth is standing still. Well, what that is really, it's just a play on what your frame of reference is. When you look at it, look at the data and look at the results and everything, it is very hard to definitively say whether we are moving or if the sky is moving, just from those experiments. And so it's a play. They take the side, well, obviously it proves that the Earth is still, but now it's a frame of reference thing, so they're playing on the side of the Earth is still, but you can't really tell just from that data which is moving.
Interesting. One of my favorite non sequitur fallacies that gets brought up a lot was actually brought up right away with my Mark Sargent chat, which is, why did NASA only take a picture from 1974, the Blue Marble, up until basically this year?
Well, that was primarily because of distance. I mean, the Blue Marble picture, I think, was done. I don't remember which system took that, but the Apollo astronauts took pictures from space of the Earth too. But things were far enough out. Most of the geosynchronous satellites and things like that, and a lot of the spy satellites we have, they're too close to be able to have a wide enough focal range to get the whole Earth into a picture. I mean, they're pretty far up there, but they're still pretty close. It'd have to be a really wide lens, and again, that's not what they're put up there to do. They're put up there to get tight pictures on the Earth, to get actual data for weather patterns and carbon emissions and all kinds of stuff, right? We depending on what we look at the Earth with different filters and get different wavelengths, we can see pollutants. You can see where you've got deforestation. You can see all kinds of stuff. And so the cameras are made to look much, much closer and tighter, and just can't zoom out to take a picture like that. Now, the Discover camera, the Discover satellite, and the Epic camera is made to do that. It is far enough out. It's about 1 million miles at the Lagrange 1 point, and it's got a 4 megapixel, I believe, sensor in it. It's got a very narrow focus, very narrow field of view, straight back at the Earth, and that's its main thing, is to take a series of pictures throughout the day of the Earth in various wavelengths, not just what you see on the website, but it takes pictures in all kinds of different wavelengths for other data gathering, weather, pollutants, greenhouse gases, deforestation, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, wow. I mean, like I said, it's good to hear things from a different perspective. I'm going to ask you, because somebody said in the chat, people in here like to hear different fringe things. So you said something earlier, and if I don't ask you this question, people would probably ask me why I didn't. So I'm going to ask it to you to be fair. You said something earlier about, and you were joking, but you said, if NASA wanted to put unicorns in the sky, they could do it, but we're just talking, nonsense then. When you were talking about Sargent, because people always talk about Project Bluebeam, this, that. Are you saying, does NASA have the technology to project something like that in the sky for people to see things if they wanted to? I have to ask you. I have to ask.
No, I was being tongue in cheek, saying that if things were the way Mark Sargent thinks they are, and we have this hollow dome around us that we control like a video game console, then that would be the case. But that is not the case.
Okay, I had to ask. Like I said, so I had to
How
ask.
many watts would that light bulb be for the projector?
I'm telling you, a lot. Hey, listen, on the Epic camera and the Discover satellite, seriously, if anybody that really wants to go to that website, and there is very good technical information on the satellite and the camera. There's pictures of the camera and the filter system before they launched it when they were building it. There is diagrams that shows the focal length and how it works. It's all on the website. It's a very good resource.
One of the questions that is asked a lot is what kind of, I guess, transmitting device is able to transmit something millions of miles?
Radio, man. This kills me. Everybody talks about this, and
I can agree. Radio can do that.
And it's like, everybody thinks everybody is used to their cell phone and their little Wi-Fi at home, and they think that's state of the art. It is state of the art in a way, but for long-range communication, that stuff is not intended to be long-range communications, and by design, it's not made to be. You don't want your cell phone broadcasting for tens and 20 miles. It's just not the way the system is designed to work. But you can, if you go out and you look on the top of any of these buildings that do satellite communication, you're going to see these big, 10-meter dishes and 6-meter dishes, and those can receive radio transmissions from a long way away. And and for example, I'll give you a good example. Like I just said, the Epic camera only has like a 4-megapixel sensor in it, and it only has a sensor like a normal camera sensor, like any camera that you're used to, actually has a red, blue, and green photo site in it, photocell, and so it picks up red light, blue light, and green light. Well, the Epic camera only has basically doesn't have that. It just has luminosity, and so what you do is you rotate a filter over it, a red filter, take a picture, a blue filter, take a picture, a green filter, and take a picture, and then when you combine those three, you get a full color picture, just like your regular camera works. But the reason they do that is because if they can keep the sensor size down to a reasonable amount, and if you're not sending back, a bunch of extra data, you don't need as much bandwidth to send the transmission from the satellite back to the Earth. And that's really what the problem with long-range communications is not how far we can communicate with something, but it's how much data you can get back in a certain amount of time. It's bandwidth.
Wow.
So at home, your Wi-Fi is very short range but very high bandwidth, right? They're always improving it. So now that you're in the hundreds of megabits per second to gigabit per second and something like that. But a lot of these satellites, that are getting data back from space, they're not getting anywhere near that. They're transmitting back at a much slower rate, and it takes a long time for a picture to be transmitted. Like we take a picture and we get on the internet and we see a picture in just less than a second. Well, it'll take minutes and minutes and minutes for them to get a picture back from a satellite. Wow. And not just because of the distance, just because of the bandwidth.
Right. Hey guys, I gotta wake up for work in the morning. It was good to be on with you. It's Tim, Rocket Man, Kelly, Adam. You guys have a good night. I'm gonna get off.
Too bad.
Take it easy, guys.
I appreciate you coming on, and this has been really enlightening. As a kid, I really was into astronomy and all that kind of stuff, and it's just wondrous and it's amazing. And it was very upsetting to me when I kind of figured out that the whole flat Earth was a bunch of BS. And I would like to say, please do not answer any questions that you don't feel comfortable or anything like that. But
No
can
problem.
you comment on Nazis or Freemasons having anything to do with NASA at all?
I have no knowledge of any Nazi anything. I've heard all the same rumors that when Von Braun came over, he was a Nazi, but I don't have any. There's nothing to indicate any of that, as far as I know. As far as the Freemasons go, I I don't know where. And I'm honest. I'm just speaking from because I'm talking strictly from a point of ignorance here. I don't I don't think I know a Freemason. Um, and after hearing a bunch of this stuff uh, on the internet about all this, I went and looked up, a lot of the Freemason lodges in I guess in my general area, and looked at the membership list and the officers and stuff like that, and I'm like, I looked at it and I was like, man, these guys aren't changing the world. These are a bunch of old geezers that are hanging on to something that's dying. Uh, I don't personally, I don't think I know a Freemason, to be honest.
So you're saying that not every astronaut, like we're told, that goes into space is a dedicated Freemason. They try and tell us every single solitary one, everybody behind NASA, they're all part of that. That's what we're fed.
I seriously doubt. I seriously doubt any of them are. Like I said, I know a few of the astronauts, and I've never seen anything to give me any indication that any of those guys are or guys or gals or Freemasons. Like I said, I don't know what the mysticism around the Freemasonry thing is. I just don't get it.
It has to do with a lot of the conspiracy world. One day it's Freemasons, and really it is a good old boys club basically, and like all of them, basically 99% of them, or 99.9% of them, don't have any idea at all because they're compartmentalized. But you hear the Jesuits or it's the Catholic Church trying to push everything. Basically, it's the conspiracy world just coming out and trying to put two and two together, which usually is just complete lies, basically.
Yeah, I don't really know anything about Freemasonry or Freemasons, and honestly, I hadn't given any of that a thought in the least until in the last 4 months when I started watching some of these videos, and I was like, man, what is the deal? You would think that from listening to this that the Freemasons are hiding behind every corner, ruling the world. And like I said, I went out and I looked at the website of a bunch of the different lodges and looked. They've got pictures of their officers on there. Those dudes ain't ruling nothing. And just go take a look at some of these guys.
Well, we were basically just showing people that they were telling you that they never had anything to do with it, but when you look in the history, that they've believed in flat Earth a long time. That's basically what we were just trying to show people. I'm sure Tim.
I noticed. I know there's a lot of people that were Freemasons in the past, historically. Washington and a lot of those guys, and I think it probably was something, at some point. But I don't know. I think in modern times, a lot of that's changed. Just like people used to belong to country clubs and go to country clubs a lot, but you don't see very many country clubs anymore.
Yeah, that's
So
exactly. I've been to the Masonic Lodge a couple of times for events and stuff, and it's a social club. If you know somebody there, they can recommend you. You can go and join, and the purpose of joining is to network, and sometimes you get business contacts. Sometimes it's just social contacts, just people wanting to get together and everything. And it's just a club. There's it's along the same lines. where my parents grew up was a small town, and they had an Odd Fellows Club. And it was the same thing. It's like all the old guys went and joined the Odd Fellows, and yeah, they did weird little ritual things for the initiation, like just like college frats do.
I don't think that any of us can speak to how deep it is, because anybody, they're not going to tell you anyway, because that's the whole point of a secret society. So, but real quick, I do, before this ends up, because we'll probably be ending up sometime soon, I want to know a big question that I've been asked, and you and Kelly can both hit on this, Rocket Man and Kelly. I just want to know, the South Pole, they say we can't find it, we can't pinpoint where it is. That also dictates that something shady is going on. Would anybody like to touch on that? Because I'd really like to hear what you guys would say about that. And the disappearance of GPS in the South in general. So I guess it's a kind of a South question in general.
Well, as far as the South Pole goes, I mean, people are there all the time. Who was it? Somebody just did a pretty good video on the South Pole. I'm gonna have to find it, but it was like CGP Grey or somebody like that just did a really good video on the South Pole and how it was kind of divided up amongst all the nations. Even though we've got a treaty, they all kind of pseudo claimed their little stake, and something like that. And they all have research stations down there. I mean, I think the main reason you don't fly over the South Pole is for safety reasons, because one of the guys I talked to here is an airline mechanic, and he said all the airplanes have and I'm going to get the acronym wrong, but it's basically it's a rating that they can't be more than a certain amount of time from an airport, and it depends on the class of plane you're in. And the big overseas carriers that fly, from Chicago to Europe or New York to Europe, those are bigger planes that have multiple engines and have longer ratings and stuff like that. But even then, I think the safest route is always to kind of you don't fly directly over the South Pole, right? You go, and it's probably not even the shortest route for a lot of things. But the airline carriers also, now, I mean, military flights go over it, I'm sure, but the airline carriers also aren't going to just pick a route that doesn't make economic sense, right? They're gonna fly where the passengers are wanting to go, and you got to look at, okay, how much traffic do you think you have between, say, Jones, what's the south part of Africa, Cape Town, and say Auckland, New Zealand, and is it quicker to go over the South Pole, or is it quicker to go kind of I guess that would be east, due east? I haven't measured it. I don't know. But there's research stations there. I mean, there's people there all the time. You can go to the South Pole. People can pay and go there now. You can go on a trip, and it doesn't cost $40,000 and $50,000 like everybody says. And GPS. Listen, I don't know where people get their information on GPS. GPS does not track anything. GPS is not a tracking system. GPS is a constellation of satellites in the sky that broadcast a signal. And the GPS receiver that's in your hand picks up the signals from all the satellites, and based on the timing delay, it calculates your position. The GPS satellites do nothing more than that.
Just like a radio tower, 3 radio towers, you're standing on the ground, it pings your distance, and then it calculates back.
It's triangulation. That's all it is. It's triangulation, and the GPS satellites are just the beacons, right? So people
say the flights disappear. It's because they're not tracking the flights.
They never track the flights. What happens is the only way for flights to be tracked is the flight receives its location GPS, and it relays that via radio to some ground-based system, whatever over. But even those, the ground-based systems that we normally you're flying over land, and you've got, if you look at the FAA, not the FAA, but the Commercial Air Traffic's radar system, over the land, it's pretty filled out, and along the coastlines, it extends out, some distance, 100, 150 miles, but beyond that, there's no radar systems that can reach from, like, say, California to Hawaii. And so a plane flying, say, from California to Hawaii would not be able to be picked up by radar. Now, it may relay its location back via radio that it received from GPS, but it's not going to be on the radar system, and GPS isn't tracking it. GPS, like I said, doesn't track anything. And as far as the Southern Hemisphere, I've never been in the Southern Hemisphere. I don't know why it wouldn't work. I think that's bull. But anyway.
Wow, I mean, it's just because it's crazy because, like I said, for a year now, I've heard they point to all these things and, that they're holding hands. Nobody's allowed to get down there. They turn you away at gunpoint, different things like that. How about this? You touched on how things are run at a certain level. It has to be economically good.
Hey, hang on, Adam. Can you hold that thought? Let me add something. This is something I've been wanting to bring up and tell people, but if you go and you look at the sporting yacht enthusiasts, the people that try to set these circumnavigation records, or these people that try to set the speed record for solo sailing around the world, all of those people, without exception almost, sail around Antarctica, basically. They will set out somewhere, and like I think the one girl I was looking at set out from Australia, and she basically sails from Australia to South America, from South America to Africa, and then back across the Indian Ocean and back to Australia. Now, she's got GPS logs of all that. They track that because that's how they verify their record. All right, so I know GPS works down there because they track that. Now, the one thing that whatever the governing body for this organization is that tracks these things, they've got rules set up that says you have to. What is it? It's either you have to cross 2 points that are on opposite sides of the globe or something like that, or something. So you'll see all these people, if you go and you look at their GPS logs online, you'll see what they do is somewhere in between, like the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean, they will turn and they will sail north just long enough to cross over the equator, and then they basically turn around and come right back south and go around the tip of South America, straight across to Africa, and then straight across the Indian Ocean and back to Australia, and then back to wherever they originated from.
Well, they just actually said the other night, no one's allowed to circumnavigate the globe. You're not allowed to do it. That's the other narrative they tell people too.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that do it all the time. And they all sail because that's the shortest route, right? I mean, if you're trying to set a speed record, you're going to take the shortest route. Yeah. And the shortest route is basically it's, Australia to South America, around Cape, around Cape Horn, Cape of Good Hope, across the Indian Ocean, back to Australia.
Anything to add to that, Kelly, about the GPS or anything?
I was going to say two things. I've got 2 videos on my channel. One of them's Antarctica documentary. It shows that the science team's going down there. There's whole little towns or a town, probably, that has been built up to house the people that go down there. They've got buildings, they're doing science experiments. So on my channel, there's a video, and you can see what's going on down there in Antarctica. And then I've got a second video where I've got this graphic programmer actually took and created a sphere Earth, and he's got the flights plotted on it, so you can see the lines that the airlines go. And so you just twist around, look down to the southern hemisphere, and you can see the flights that are going down across there. And for like for going from South America, Brazil, to Australia, the straight line doesn't cross Antarctica. It's just off to the side of it. So that's why, when you're flying, you want to take the direct route, and the direct route doesn't go directly over Antarctica. It's off to the side of it. So you can go and see on that, and then I've got the link on there, so you can actually go out to that graphic and you can play with it. You can twist the world around and see where all the flights are going and see how that works.
It's crazy how many different things that they say that I myself got sucked into, but that when you hear the logical, real scientific explanations for it that are matched for years and years and years, and then research, because I'm writing things down here I'm going to research later on. One of the big questions I wanted to ask you was, this is one of the things Jeranism and others have said is a big proof of why the ISS is fake and it doesn't make sense. They say there's no compartments. If anything happens, any damage to it, they can't close off one compartment so everyone else can survive in the others. So if anything happens, all the micrometeorites flying around up there, how do none of those micrometeorites hit any of the astronauts when they're working on the ISS? They say it's impossible. And why are there no compartments that close off so that other people can be saved if something went wrong?
Yeah, that's bull. There are compartments. The thing was put up there in pieces, right? so I mean, every bit of it was launched up in the back of the shuttle, and you kept putting it up module by module. So it's not like they left the thing open while they were putting the rest of it up there. So you can close it off. I mean, that's.
You're saying right now that is definitely, if something happens, there are procedures where they can close off one hatch so other people can survive, because that's what's logical, right? I mean, why wouldn't it?
Yeah, one of the tours they've got on the NASA YouTube channel, they do ISS tours. On one of those, I'm not sure which one, but the lady astronaut that is doing that, she actually goes and says, okay, now if there's like a fire within the ISS or chemicals get released, we go over to this part, we go down in here, and this is our safe spot that we can close it off. And
wow.
Until the chemical spill gets cleaned up or whatever, everybody, there is spots for them to go for safety.
And I think if there's a risk that's a little bit too close for comfort, say for example they have a piece of space junk that's within a certain range, they actually get into the Soyuz capsule that's docked there and just kind of wait. That way, if there is something happens, they can detach and return quickly.
So you're saying these micrometeorites that they tell us that they were set the narrative that they're flying around at the speed of bullets, or faster. There is ways to track them and to try and prepare for it. That's what you're saying.
No, below a certain amount, you can't track them. They can track space junk for using ground-based radar for things that are I don't know what the smallest size is, but it's up to a certain point. And a lot of that stuff they've cataloged, right? Because satellites have failed. Satellites have. I think somebody even blew up a satellite one time. I can't remember, but there's all kinds of junk up in space, right? Stages, upper stages that have put satellites up. Those stages are still floating around up there somewhere, and a lot of that stuff eventually comes back down, but. There's thousands and thousands of things up there, but space is a big place. I mean,
do you think that's what it is, that people just can't perceive how far a light year is, how big space is, that it's so big that none of us can even perceive it because we have nothing to match it to in our minds.
Well, I mean, it's like if I take, I don't know, if I take 1,000 safety pins, straight pins, like out of a sewing kit, I take 1,000 of those, and I throw them as hard as I can out in the middle of a soccer field and tell you to go run around through there barefoot. There's a really, really strong chance that you will never feel one of those pins. Right?
Wow, good analogy.
It's just, space is a big place, and you're talking about relatively small things in space. So, it's crowded, but it's not like you're walking through a hoarder's house or anything where shit's about to fall over on top of you. So
and it's like the Earth is the same way. It's really big. It's like an ant. People on the Earth are like an ant to a wheat field.
Oh yeah, that reminds me. The curvature. Would they say, because every time your eye, Morgan was saying, when your eye rises to the horizon, it always rises to the horizon, even when you go up as high as 80,000 feet, 60,000 feet, you can't ever see the curvature. Are you guys saying that is because not only, no matter how high you go, you're so tiny compared to how big it is, but also the naked eye isn't going to be able to pick it up regardless?
Well, all right. If you rise up high enough, you'll see it, right? I don't know what that number is, but if you rise up high enough, obviously you'll see it. I got a point of contention with the whole the horizon always rises to your eye level. That's bullshit. The horizon is not at your eye level when you're standing on the ground. It is always slightly below your eye level. It's not at your eye level unless your head is on the ground.
That's a really wow.
Even
not where you're at.
Even if it were a flat plane, let's use the ocean for example. Even if it's a flat plane and the ocean goes on forever, if you're looking level and straight, you're always going to be looking slightly above the horizon. And as you rise up, it's always going to be at some angle down to you, even if it were a freaking flat plane. You can just draw it out geographically. Just draw it out. I mean,
I see what you're saying.
Right, but that's picking a nit right there. But for most of the pictures that are of, I think everybody's done the calculations, and for most of the pictures you see on the line, and you try to do this, the curvature is within the resolution of a couple of pixels. And that's hard to pick out in a picture. And I tell you what, a lot of the pictures people keep throwing up and saying, look, and they keep drawing a line across it and saying, look, flat plane. A lot of those, if you actually do a screen capture of the YouTube video right before they draw the line, and you take it and you draw a line, if you draw a straight line and move it, you'll see that it's actually not flat.
Yeah, I've made several videos doing exactly that. And while you are here, Rocket Man, I would like to ask. We kind of touched on it with Kelly earlier. A lot of claims are saying that the moon does not give or it actually gives up a cooling effect. You have anything to say about that?
That's probably one of the stupidest things that I've heard in all this. It's I don't know. I'm not even. Basically, anybody that thinks the moon is giving off its own light and not reflecting the sun, all you got to do is just look at a close-up picture of the terminator line on the moon when it's not a full moon, and you can see the shadows of the craters and everything else where the sun's just coming in a very low angle at that terminator line. You can see the topology of the moon, and it's like, what makes anybody think that you would have such an intricate pattern of light being given off by the moon? It's obviously shadows from the sun, and the whole cooling light thing. People, I don't know. A photon is a photon. and it's not going to cool. It is what it is. It's always going to, you know, it's from the sun. I don't know why people, and I've seen the videos where these people get these little, you know, $30 touchless thermometers that and shoot the laser at the ground and say, look, it's 10 degrees here, and they shoot it over there, and it's 12 degrees there. Obviously, the moon is cooling that, and it's like, man, the error band on those thermometers are, I don't know what they are, but they're not exactly scientific instruments. And you know, if you're wanting to check your air conditioner to see if your air conditioner is cooling, they're okay. If you're wanting to take scientific measurements, they're not the thing to use.
Yeah, I agree. Plus, I was saying before, I mean, I mean, they're using just completely faulty logic. They're using no controls. They're putting it on the ground. There's wind. There's so many different variables that they're not even trying
No,
to.
it's you're right. It's flat Earth is the mecca of fluffy science.
So you're saying that they're screaming pseudoscience at people like NASA while they're doing pseudoscience with no controls, no real experiments, basically. I mean, that's...
I've never seen anybody do anything that even comes close to a controlled experiment on this. You know, Jaron and his laser across the bay.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
You know, the only person I ever heard that came up with a slightly close to good idea was Mr. Thrive and Survive, and he wanted to go to California and watch a sunset, and he wanted to take a camera on a tripod at the beach and film the sunset, and he wanted to suspend a camera from a balloon and go up a couple of 100 feet with it or whatever and film the sunset and see if the two cameras showed the sunset at the same time. And I was like, I told him, I even commented on his video, I said, do it. You need to do that, because if you do it right, you will see that the camera on the balloon, the sun will set later than the camera on the ground.
Nice.
Wow.
But he never followed through with that.
You can do that from like
Wrong.
yeah, you can do that from an office building. If you can go up into an office building and you'll watch the sunset from the ground, and just as it's starting to go down, and then you go in and go up, like I used to work on the 29th floor of a building. You could jump in, go up, jump out of the elevator and go look, and you'll see more of the sun, before, or, if you're on the ground, you can see the sun just disappear, and then you can jump up in the elevator and you can see the top of the sun again. And also you can verify it by going outside, and you'll see the sun on the building. It'll slowly rise up as the sun is setting. You'll see
the shadow move up the building.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Somebody else, I think I was talking to Red about this, and or maybe, I don't remember who it was, but it was talking about the Burj Khalifa and over in Dubai. And the Islamic world has a thing, I think it's Ramadan, where I guess they have to wait until sunset during this holiday season before they can eat. So it's official sunset once the sun goes down. And at the Burj Khalifa, the people on the ground floor are able to start eating before the people in the top. It's actually because the sunset for the people at the top of the Burj Khalifa is like a minute or so behind, or 2 minutes behind the people on the ground floor. So they actually account for that in the Burj Khalifa in this Islamic holiday.
Wow. And Rocket Man, I would, somebody did ask in the chat, I would be interested to see, would you be interested to join, since you actually have seen some of what Jaron does, they have the globebusters, you know, saying the ISS is fake and the camera's fake and stuff like that. Would you be interested to actually appear on that show sometime?
I've thought about it, and I'm going to tell you why I haven't just jumped on it. And a lot of your people are going, a lot of the people, especially the flat earthers, are going to call bullshit on this. But the main reason I haven't jumped on it is because I've seen stuff like what Morgile does, where they lash out against people, right?
Yeah.
And one of the main things is people aren't going to believe my credibility unless I identify myself. And so I've purposely been trying to keep my real name and everything out of this, because it would be very easy for somebody, if they just knew my name and what area in NASA I worked, or at least geographically where I worked, they could do a quick Google search and literally have my email address and my phone number at work.
Okay. Yeah, that's no good. Your credentials sound fine to me, man. I mean, you speak, the way you speak, everything you've said so far, it's clear, very clear that you know what you're talking about. I mean,
yeah, please don't give any information out to these people.
Yeah,
I'm not. I'm not going to. I've kind of verified myself to one person. That's Reg Redrick. And I've sent him information from work and emails from my work address and things like that. But these other guys, because basically I've seen Morgile, for example, when he did that Art Bell thing with what's his name, Josh Grinley. I mean, he came out with a whole video after that, just kind of slandering Josh Grinley, and I was like, you know what? Some of these people are crazy enough that if my real life information was out there, I'd be getting shit at work like crazy, man. And
trust me, it's the same with me, and they'll go after your family as well. I'm actually in a problem right now. Somebody did a failed dox on me named Jeff Stewart, and some guy, Kyle Jones, in California, and I'm trying to contact him to get it cleared up, because these flat earthers will go after your family on Facebook and your job and all kinds of stuff, and I would rather not that happen. And some of these people are mentally, ill to where they might even, for some of the things that I've done, probably go and probably try to hurt this person. So it's not worth it. I would keep your anonymity at all costs for sure.
Yeah, so that's the only reason. I mean, if I went on there, I would have to go on there and just be clear, say, look, I'm not going to verify, I'm not going to give you anything that will allow you to do a Google search and find out my work email address and my work phone number, because all that stuff is public information. I don't work for, if you find my name, it's just my name at nasa.gov, right? And if you get that, you can call basically a phone number and say, hey, can I speak to so-and-so, and they'll connect you to me.
You can't be dealing with stuff like that. That's completely understandable. We all understand that. I actually wanted to, because this was one of the things that originally got me into Flat Earth when I started looking at the satellite stuff, and a particular video that talked about the thermosphere and how it was telling me that it's impossible to get these satellites through the thermosphere because of the temperatures that it hits and the materials that the satellites are made out of. And I would really like to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, all right, here's the deal with the thermosphere.
You and Kelly.
The thermosphere, heat is kind of a funny thing, right? I mean, heat is basically the activity of an atomic particle and how excited it is. And you can have the atomic particle be very excited, but if there's not very many atomic particles in that area, they don't have a chance to really impart that energy into something else. So, for example, we're here and we're in, at sea level, and we have a lot of air around us. When the air gets hot, it's always bumping into us, and we feel that. right? That energy is imparted into our molecular structure, and that's basically heat transfer. But when you're flying in through the thermosphere, the particles are very excited to a temperature of so and so, whatever 1,000 degrees. But it's very rarefied air. There's just not a whole lot up there, and you pass through it, or basically when you're traveling through it, you're not running into very many particles. And so I think if you've ever had let me try to think of a simple solution.
In layman's terms, you're saying that the air is so thin when you pass through it, there's really not enough friction to create the heat.
Well, and even though the particles may be very excited, have you ever tried to does anybody weld or solder or anything like that?
I have done it a few times, yes.
Okay, so if you ever try to weld like something that's got a big chunk of metal or something like that, you have to put more energy into it because the metal just absorbs a lot of the heat.
Yeah, okay, absolutely.
Right? And by the same token, if you're welding something and you don't want the heat to travel down the part, like you don't want to put too much, like if you're welding aluminum or something, maybe, I don't know, and you don't want the heat to travel too far down the part because it could warp other things or something like that, you put a heat sink on it, and the heat sink is just a massive hunk of metal close to the weld, and that will get hot, and it'll kind of stop the heat at that point. Well, the principle's kind of the same. You're putting a little bit of energy into a massive piece of metal, and it doesn't really heat it up, right? And so when you're in the thermosphere and you've got very sparse amount of molecules bumping into a satellite, it can absorb that little bit of heat input, and it just doesn't make a difference.
Wow. I mean,
all I can say
is wow.
Yeah, what I like to think of, I don't know if this is real correct, but the Earth's atmosphere, think of a pot of boiling water. Down at the water level, a lot of steam is coming off, but as it rises up, it dissipates out. So the Earth's atmosphere, I kind of picture it the same way. There's a lot of air down at the ground level, and then it just kind of dissipates out as you get further out. So
it's the barometric pressure. Correct.
Yeah. Well, just the amount of air molecules.
Yeah.
Like when the steam, 2 feet above the pot, you can still see a little bit of steam, but it's dispersed out. So that's kind of how I picture it. I don't know if that's, if that's a real good mental picture of it or not, but that's how I kind of think of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like having an oven turned on to 500 degrees, and you just quickly put your hand in there. It's not like your hand's gonna melt.
Exactly.
So,
you don't have enough contact with it for any length of time for it to really do anything. But basically, there's just not enough air there for it to impart enough energy into the spacecraft to actually ever really heat it up. Now things in space get hot from solar radiation, but if you'll look and you'll see that gold foil that everybody makes fun of, that stuff is there to reflect solar radiation, and so it keeps whatever's behind it relatively cooler. It reflects that energy away.
Wow. So there's a meaning for it all.
That's why you see a lot of gold foil and stuff like that. It is there. It's gold is dense, and it's a really thin layer, but it's enough that particles that come in, like solar radiation, they basically can bounce off of it, and it'll keep whatever's behind it cooler, much cooler.
do you guys have, Kelly or Rocket Man, do you have anything that you can think of, logical fallacies or anything like that they push constantly that you would like to get an answer out to? Because I'm trying to think, and I think you guys have hit on a lot of them. People that listen, flat earthers or anybody, can go do their own research because it's a lot easier when it's, kind of narrowed down by somebody that actually knows what they're talking about. You guys have anything that you would like to add at all before we wrap it up?
Well, the one that comes to my mind instantly, and that's just because I just happened to watch the video that you guys did with the Morgile, uh, whatever it was, a day at 3 o'clock in the morning, and he keeps talking about you see the same stars day or night, or summer and winter, and I'm like, no, you don't. If all you got, just a quick Google search will show anybody, and most people would know this because you're able to recognize certain constellations like Orion and things like that very easily, and you don't see Orion in the summer. You only see Orion in the winter. And you don't see it in the summer because in the summer it's on the other side of the sun. And like Sagittarius, you don't see Sagittarius in the winter. You see it in the summer. And those are just two examples. There's a whole slew of constellations, and the constellations are categorized by summer constellations and winter constellations and spring constellations and fall constellations, because that's when you see them. You don't see them in these other times of the year.
Yeah,
and it takes nothing to verify that.
Yeah,
Kenny hit on that a little on that earlier about how he's just pointing at ones that are at true north, not looking east and west.
yeah, the ones that he's saying are you can see year-round are the ones that are closer to Polaris. They're basically above the Earth. If you're off the Earth, then north is the top, with a little bit of the 23.5 degree tilt to it. But the ones up at the top, you can see, it's like looking up at the ceiling. And then the ones that are on the wall to the sides are the ones that are going to be seasonal.
Very good. And it's really easy just to think about, really. It's a lot easier because he brought that up, and I personally don't claim to know everything about everything. I can tell you when I smell BS, and really the flat earth has nothing, and that's why I try to bring out the logical fallacies. But it's really great to have you guys on finally, really to hear. Obviously, I will be changing the title of this quite a bit since we had such heavy hitters here. Do you mind if I put a NASA Insider in the title as well as your channel in the description box?
There's nothing on my channel, but yeah, I don't care. You can put it on there.
Very good. Awesome. Well, thanks again, guys. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else that you can think of? Because people are looking for answers. Not everybody's a crazy conspiracy theorist. Just some people just got lost along the way, and it was in a pretty package and the big bow on it, and they bought it. So is there anything else you guys can think of before we wrap up?
Well, hey, I was going to say one more thing about the constellations. The same goes with the Milky Way. At one point of the year, I believe it's the summer, we're facing towards the center of the Milky Way. And so if you take a picture of the Milky Way, or if you look at the Milky Way, or you see pictures taken at the Milky Way in the summer or in the July-June time frame, and then you see pictures of the Milky Way taken in the winter, they look completely different. Because in the wintertime, we're facing towards the outer bands of the Milky Way. And so there's still a Milky Way, but it's not the same. It's not even the same picture. It's completely different. It's much dimmer. So, again, easily verifiable.
Well, I just want to say thank you guys so much for coming on, and for everybody listening, and to Tim and everybody, Kelly, everyone. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I'm sorry. One more thing. I forgot to tell you guys. I put another link over here in the chat on the side, and it's a link to a Wikipedia page on Jessica Watson, and it was the one I could find easily. It was like a 16-year-old girl from Australia that circumnavigated back in 2009, 2010, and it shows her route on the Wikipedia page. And the other thing, it's like they take the shortest route, like I said, right? Well, the shortest route is around the southern tip of all the southern continents. And if you look at a flat Earth map, that would be the longest route. And so these guys or these people doing these speed records, trying to set these speed records, aren't going to take the longest route. So you can go look at that, and you could look at the wiki. If you just look up circumnavigation yacht speed records, there's a whole list of people that try this every year, and they pretty much always go around the southern tip of all the southern continents. And so basically they circumnavigate Antarctica on a yearly basis. And these are individuals, nothing to do with the government. It's verified by a private agency or a private entity that kind of like sets these speed records. Completely private.
Awesome. And thanks again, guys. I actually wasn't going to talk much this show, but like I said, we got some extremely heavy hitters on. This is probably an interview or a chat like no other that many flat earthers basically have never seen. So again, I really appreciate it. I'm going to actually take some work to cut up some of this and be able to make it into separate videos so that people can take little bite size, kind of hack at some of the logical fallacies that we went through, some of the flat lies that they like to push. You guys
sounds good.
Really cleared up a lot for me. What was that, Kelly?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks to everyone who has come out. And I hope this clears up a lot of the misconceptions that people have about where we stand every day. Thanks again.
Sure. All right. See you guys.
See ya.